Welcome to Rotterdam, the maritime capital of Europe. Here they test, develop and implement maritime innovations, such as autonomous shipping. So let's discover Rotterdam as a maritime hotspot. I'm at the Technical University of Delft to talk to Professor Rudy Negenborn, and I'm going to ask him about his vision on the future of autonomous shipping. Rudy, let's start with the first question. What is the status right now of autonomous shipping?
Well, the status of autonomous shipping is going really well. In the Rotterdam region, there are a lot of developments. You could say that the ecosystem of knowledge institutes, ports, industry in the port area, and maritime businesses is really growing. As we speak, actually, we are doing small-scale pilots with autonomous ships to try out the latest insights in technology. And in discussions with industry, we're thinking about, okay, how can we make small steps towards implementation? Besides the technological challenges, there are also, for example, legal aspects. Is an autonomous ship a ship? Maybe that sounds like a strange question, but depending on the legal conditions, which can also change from one country to another, the definition of a ship varies. So there are all kinds of legal rules and regulations that need to be checked for compliancy with these concepts.
So, to successfully implement autonomous shipping, there are still a couple of challenges to be addressed. Not only in the field of technology, but also in the field of regulation, jurisdiction, financing and insurance. Rotterdam has a complete maritime business services cluster. So, let's talk to the maritime service providers. What does Dutch jurisdiction have to offer to autonomous shipping?
The Dutch jurisdiction is a very accessible, affordable and low-profile jurisdiction for people and parties to step into. It's a good system, and it's not just the Dutch who are saying that, but it's also the Rule of Law Index that has proven the Dutch system to be affordable, accountable, it's independent. They score very good when it comes to transparency. Not fraudulent.
It has a high score internationally.
Yes, it's very well established and very well recognized. So if you have a Dutch verdict, that means something in international business. Yes.
And if we look at autonomous shipping and the maritime law and everything, what does the jurisdiction have to offer on that field?
Well, it's important to understand that shipping is always evolving, and it's important to know where you come from. The Dutch have a very rich history when it comes to shipping, when it comes to knowledge of shipping. We have been in trade and shipping for a long time.
Yes.
And the people who are dealing with these matters are very experienced in the field of law in general, in the field of maritime law. The judges, who almost all have a maritime background. We have a specialized maritime chamber in the Court of Rotterdam, where proceedings can be held in English if parties should desire so. And these people know what they're talking about. Also the lawyers, also the experts, they have a lot of knowledge. And that is very important in the field of autonomous shipping, because there are a lot of things that are yet unknown. You have to be able to feel what shipping is like and start from there and explore the field of autonomous shipping.
But it's a good starting point that
it's
you have
absolutely
specialists handling this specific area.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because so many things are unknown. There is no well-established legislation for autonomous shipping. That's all in the making. So.
But at the same time, it's all in the making. We have a high standard of legislation here in the Netherlands. Yes. But is it also flexible enough to adapt to the needs of autonomous shipping?
Well, the good thing is, because we don't have any legislation, the judges and the lawyers and all the people involved are capable of bending, given the space that the existing legislation has. They can fit the autonomous shipping into that framework, while in the meantime, lawmakers have to work on new laws, creating all the things needed, liability and who does what, to create a new framework which more specializes on autonomous shipping. But there is an existing framework, and also within that existing framework, the people can very well work and
So
the assistance to the parties.
that framework is evolving and expanding at the same time.
Yes, like what you always see in law is that the process of lawmaking comes after the fact finding. And first you have a problem, and then the judges think something of it. And then the lawmakers think, okay, well, this sounds reasonable. We're going into this or that direction. But first, it has to be clear what society thinks of it. If, for example, an incident should occur with an autonomous sailing ship, then it could happen that the public opinion is changing, and that would mean that lawmaking is making more strict laws. While if there are no problems, and if it can be seen that the existing law frame is doing well enough to provide a legal basis, then the adaptations that there are going to have to be made. There will be, of course, a lot of adaptations that need to be done, but will be lesser and will evolve in time as things move by.
It sounds very interesting because in this whole field that is very innovative and experimental and testing, people are talking about all the challenges, all the hiccups on the road maybe. But what I hear right now is that the Dutch jurisdiction is ready for it.
We've been ready ever since. We're absolutely ready, and that's also because of the heritage we have with sailing, with trading, being a stable base for people to come here, to trade here. We have not been ruling the waves like Great Britain has, but we have been trading on the waves for a long, long time, and that's what gives us an advantage in this field.
So the Netherlands, as you said before, scores high
Yes.
internationally. And what can Dutch jurisdiction offer internationally for the global community when it comes to autonomous shipping?
Reliability, independency. I think these are the two main things. The Dutch legal system is very transparent. The people working here are accessible, not just that you can call them and talk to them, but the Dutch do speak their language. And it's important for somebody coming from the other part of the world to be able to find somebody here who has an open mind, understands the problems they're dealing with. It's not just a matter, we have the technical possibilities, we have, I think, the open mind and the linguistical capabilities to make life easier for the people who come here. And also the willingness, which is also a great thing, to be of assistance to the parties coming here.
It sounds like you are ready for the open dialogue so people can step in and join the dialogue.
Yes, absolutely. It's something that has to be done together. So if people want to come and talk to the Dutch lawyers, experts, judges, we are here to start that dialogue and talk to them based on our experience and see, okay, what can we done now in this new, ever-evolving field?
Well, it sounds very exciting and also sounds as a very open invitation.
Yes, it definitely is.
Okay, we've talked about the Dutch jurisdiction, but what is the status of international law when it comes to autonomous shipping? And how is the Dutch jurisdiction helping there?
Well, as I said, law is always coming after the facts. It's like something moving very much in slow motion, and the international organizations are moving, but are moving even slower. But they are definitely moving. And since maritime business is a global business and inland shipping is mostly a European thing, you have to look at what these organizations are doing. The main organizations are the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. They have picked up autonomous shipping, are looking at what are the things that need to be adjusted, adapted, how, where, when. The main principles are being looked at, and they're under construction. And that's the same as is happening with the CCNR, Central Committee for the Navigation of the Rhine. The IMO is a global organization, and the Dutch, having a ocean-going fleet, are important, but we don't have the largest fleet in the world. While if you look at the CCNR, the Dutch have the largest inland-going fleet in Europe, and we definitely play a big part there because of the knowledge we have, because of the amount of ships we have. And also the CCNR is looking, what is the legislation like, what should be adapted, what is the world, the navigating world, expecting from us. A lot of projects are running nowadays within Europe under supervision of the CCNR, like the Factor 4 that you already mentioned, Captain IE, Rijkswaterstaat, all parties heavily involved to see where can we help each other. And there is room and there's space given also by the Dutch ministry to start these projects and to see, okay, where can we help each other?
And do they look at the Dutch legislation as an example, or do they watch what how it evolves over here?
I think
is there too many differences there?
No, I think all parties, everybody is looking at everybody because it's so new, and the international organizations are looking how are the different countries dealing with the different difficulties that they are encountering. And it's not logic if somebody has a brilliant idea to say, well, you invented it and I'm going to do it all again by myself. No, it's a brilliant idea, so let's benefit all from it. But until the brilliant idea evolves, everybody is looking and saying, well, how can we adapt to this occasion, to this autonomous shipping in our part of the world, for our fleet, our people, what's important to us, and then see if we can make this work within the greater system.
All working together.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is all working together. You can't do this on your own. It's global navigation. So it's absolutely useless to try and do this on your own. You need to cooperate.
Are there any parallels found between the different maritime sectors?
Yes, there are always parallels to be found and differences to be met. When it comes to, everybody is working with autonomous shipping nowadays. Ocean-going, sea-going, inland-going vessels. And you try to benefit from what the other parties create and what the other parties come up with. And you can be of assistance to each other. But also, each has their limitations. What goes for ocean-going vessels does not necessarily work for inland-going vessels. And also, if you look at, for example, the costs, if you look at inland-going vessels, the cost of personnel is relatively high compared to all the other costs, while if you have a big ocean-going vessel, the percentage of crewing cost is much lower when it comes to the whole package, the whole amount of money that you spend on keeping the ship afloat.
But can there some parts of the framework be applied to different sectors?
I think the IMO and the international communities like the CCNR and also the other relevant regional organizations are talking to each other and interchanging information to see what can be useful and what not.
Very practical approach.
Like shipping always has been.
So are there any legal tips that you can give to companies that want to onboard on the whole autonomous shipping flow?
Yes, and that is do look very closely to the contract, because it's a new thing, it's a new world we're stepping into, and not everywhere the legislative framework can offer the assistance you would like, such as you have with a collision. Everybody knows which rules apply to a collision, but when it comes to autonomous shipping, there are always specific parts that need to be sorted out. And if you don't have that transparency, if not all is yet clear, you have to have a very good contract that is as solid as you can get it. You cannot always prevent everything that is going to happen. That would cost you a 400-page contract, and still something will happen that is not in the contract. Yeah. It has to be based on faith, on mutual interest. But it's very good to have a good drawn contract, to realize what are the things that can happen, that can go wrong. And if you have that, well, I think it's a good way to start.
And I think in that manner it's also very important to exchange that information so that every area can be covered into a contract.
Yes, yes, you don't hold your cards back.
Exactly. Exchange experiences, learn from each other.
Yes.
Move forward together.
Learn from each other, benefit from each other, and then move onwards. Mutual benefits.
Well, it sounds like we're ready for autonomous shipping.
Rotterdam certainly is.
Okay, this is going to be interesting for new parties who want to go and work in the field of autonomous shipping. Do you have any tips for them?
Yes, seek assistance and make sure you have good contracts. The funny thing is that you often see that parties are involved in very expensive projects. and they don't want to spend the money for a lawyer or anybody with legislative information or experience to draw up a good contract. They say, we'll make it ourselves. And I think that's a shame, because if such a lot of money is involved and it's about such a new thing where legislation does not cover all things that could possibly happen, certainty is everything for international trade, for trade in general. And all the uncertainty must be avoided. And how can you do that? Well, try to mention it in the contract. Try to think about, okay, what if? All the what ifs should be addressed. And then you will have the certainty that, okay, we tried. And not you won't have the certainty that everything that could ever possibly happen will be in the contract. Definitely not. But the larger part will be in it. And I think that gives you a good night's sleep, a better night's sleep than if you would not have done it.
Much better night's sleep.
Yeah.
But how can you lessen the risks? How can you make sure that you have all the what ifs in the contract?
Talk to somebody who knows. And that does not necessarily has to be a lawyer, but somebody with experience. And I think it's very much know your trade. Like they say, horses for courses. Go to somebody who knows and talk to experts. Try to benefit from each other. Don't hold back. You have to disclose. If you start a relationship with another party, you have to disclose and say, okay, these are my fortes and these are my uncertainties. How can we work this out?
So you put your cards on the table.
Yes.
You have to exchange experiences and learn from them.
Yes.
And not hold back and keep it to yourself.
No, because you always run the risk that, like a boomerang, it comes back to you and it will hurt you.
But it sounds like, especially here in the Netherlands, that we are ready for autonomous shipping.
More than ready. Rotterdam definitely is.
Let's dive right in. What is the bank's perspective on autonomous shipping?
Well, to be quite honest, we don't have that much experience yet with autonomous shipping. So there's not a real concrete policy yet for the bank. How do we treat companies that are going to do this? There's not much experience yet, but of course, as more in general, we welcome companies that are innovative. We see that innovative companies, the front runners in sustainability, in data, they are tomorrow's winners. So definitely, we will welcome the fact that that companies look into this.
So it's a welcoming perspective. It's new. There's still some ground to be covered.
Yes.
If we look at financing autonomous shipping, there are some risks. What are the risks involved?
No, I don't think that autonomous shipping will be viable already for all sectors, but some sectors, like, for example, if it's very dangerous, like firefighting or salvage, there we see already that autonomous shipping can definitely add. But if you have a big container ship, I definitely see risks in having that being operated from a distance. What if something goes wrong and you have to do repairs? There are no people on board to do small repairs, so you have to go to shore. And especially with big ships, the crewing expenses are relatively small compared to the savings that you have with autonomous shipping. So why you should look in, it's really in the data, in the logistics and management of different cargo streams. There the data and the autonomous shipping can really add. Having said that, of course there are risks, besides the operational part that we just mentioned. One of the most obvious risks is, of course, the liabilities.
Yep.
Every ship has hull and machinery insurance. Now that probably covers everything that goes, if the ship goes broke. But the liabilities are, of course, something that the P&I clubs definitely need to take a viewpoint of. And there we follow them exactly, as a matter of fact. We condition in all our loan agreements that vessels are properly secured and insured. And insured means both the ship itself, but also the damage done to others. And there, with autonomous shipping, that's an interesting one.
So every risk has to be covered.
Yes, and especially if it's a global industry, especially if you travel all around the world, you have a lot of legislations where everybody needs to be aligned with respect to autonomous shipping. And there, of course, that's a long way, I would say. But it's good to see that the first steps are being taken.
It's a long way, but it's moving ahead.
Yes.
Can those risks be included in the loan application?
Sure. We expect from all our customers to apply to the local rules, local regulations, and to apply to the class societies. So they have to be in class, and the class there, of course, has also a role to play. But I think that, being practical, it has to be small steps first. So perhaps inland waterways, small trades between Rotterdam and, for example, Amsterdam or Flushing, that can be easily managed because you're in one legislation, one country. So I think that's the first steps.
That's overseeable?
Yes, or perhaps in the port of Rotterdam with the linesman, or the tugs, as of course in Rotterdam the first initiative has already been taken with the remote controlled vessels. So there we see definitely opportunities.
Okay, and if people are thinking of if people are thinking about a loan application for autonomous shipping, do you have any tips for them? What additional information should they give or provide?
Yeah, what we see often with innovation, and especially with these kind of new ground, is that it's either very small pioneering companies, the guys in the barn that make their own stuff, or the big companies that have big R&D departments and that work together with the Delft University or Maritime, and they have the sufficient funds. And I would say to the latter, of course, we are more than welcome to support them. And for the startup companies or scale-up companies, come to us and talk to us. But especially in the early stage, bank finance is not the most suitable solution. It all starts with equity, and there are a lot of subsidies available as well, and we can support them in knowing the way in the different subsidies available. And there's of course the Maritime Master Plan, which is now being presented lately, and there also the innovation budgets are really big, so that should give opportunities also for the smaller companies.
That's good to hear that there are a lot of opportunities to have it financed. But if you look worldwide, are Dutch banks the front runner in financing autonomous shipping?
Well, the front runner in financing should definitely be the venture capital funds, the people that are really taking bigger risks than bank. We are being a bit more conservative, partly because that's what our shareholders expect, and partly because the regulator expects from us, being conservative. But Holland as such is, of course, with the TU Delft. We sponsor the TU Delft Maritime students with first the solar team. Nowadays they do hydrogen. Perhaps they can add autonomous shipping as well to that.
That would be great.
That would be great. We have Maritime, of course, in Wageningen, which is worldwide well known. And we have all the institutes here in Holland. So I would definitely say that Holland should be in front of the development.
Well, as we were talking about, that this is a whole new field that is still being explored.
Yes.
But innovations are going pretty fast, and the bank is welcoming it.
Definitely, yes. As said, the innovative companies are tomorrow's winners, and if you don't do anything yet, you're stuck.
Well, opportunities all around.
Okay, man.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so the Netherlands is a shipping nation, but if we look globally on an international scale, is the sector ready for autonomous shipping? What is their status right now?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of developments. We see it as an insurer as well, of course. A lot of research has been done, new developments in the market, new technologies being introduced. So the business is going forward. However, there's still steps to be made. It's still pretty much in its infancy.
Yeah.
So still a lot to be done in order to make autonomous shipping mainstream. But there's issues that they are facing, and that mainly has to do with international regulations.
Okay, and how so?
Because international shipping regulation is not really suitable for autonomous shipping as it stands. So it needs to be adapted, and we as insurers we are of course eagerly looking forward for some clarity in that respect. So we're trying to get information from international bodies, from classification societies, local authorities. So we're trying to build up some knowledge in this respect.
So that is a boundary that is being put there, but it sounds like the international laws are not ready yet.
No, there's still a lot of work to be done in that respect, indeed. And an additional problem is that there's of course not the actual number of vessels being insured by insurers is still pretty low as well. So there's no historic data yet. So it's really still unexplored territory, basically, you could say. So there's still a lot to be learned. And what we are trying to do as an insurer is trying to get as much information as possible, of course, but also on a case-by-case basis, we're trying to help out our clients when we get inquiries. We do a tailor-made approach. We try to assist them. Yeah, as an insurer, what we do indeed, even though we're still looking for the answers, we take the approach that we try to help our clients on a case-by-case basis, try to make tailor-made solutions. Basically gathering information in order to be able in the future to hopefully underwrite this business on a larger scale. But we're not there yet.
So this is what we need. We need the interaction, we need the exchange of information, of data, of more input to move forward. And
I think it should be a mutual effort indeed between insurers, between classification societies, between local authorities possibly, and the clients themselves. So it should really be, hopefully, a joint effort in order to really get a grip on this new, let's say, business.
Okay, we're talking about insurance, so we're talking about risks. But are there any specific risks being flagged for autonomous vessels in comparison to the traditional maritime industry?
Yeah, well, I think there's, let's say, the pro and the cons. There's of course, no historic data yet, but when we think about these risks, there's the obvious advantage of there being no crew on board. So from a liability perspective, you won't have any crew liability claims, no loss of life, death of the crew. So that's a big advantage, of course. And also the element of, let's say, human error. A lot of P&I claims are caused by human errors at sea, and that element is taken away to a large extent as well. So that's an advantage. But when we think of hazards, there are some possible issues, and that's basically the technology itself for the safety of navigation. Of course, you're fully reliable on the systems that are built. You have to make sure that all the sensors on board are of good quality. That all still needs to be tested, found out. Also the fallback systems, if the system fails, what happens, what can be done, is all elements that need to be well considered, of course. There's also the issue of those vessels having batteries on board. A lot of those vessels are of course electrical propulsed.
Yeah.
So they have batteries on board. Well, we've probably heard in the news, you've probably seen it as well with cars colliding, catching fire. Yeah. It's very hard to extinguish the fire of a battery. So that may also be an issue if you are at sea, of course, or in a port area, and you have a battery burning. It's really hard to extinguish the fire. So that's also a potential hazard, I would say. And then there's the legislation. There's a lot of things are uncertain. For example, when you look at collision risks, you've got the COLREG regulations, which define on how, let's say, liabilities are apportioned at sea in case of a collision. And in case of an autonomous vessel, those regulations are really written for manned vessels. So if you don't have crew on board, what happens? There's no negligence of anyone on board.
No.
Who's to blame? So it's really hard to determine the liability in that situation. And good seamanship, it's all related normally to crew. So that's also a challenge indeed that lies ahead. And the last thing I can think of is, of course, cyber risks. A vessel being taken over by someone, maybe a terrorist who's got.
You don't want a hacked unmanned vessel.
Exactly. Yeah, you never know what the purpose is, what they want to do, but that's also potential.
So there's a lot of exciting developments going on in this autonomous shipping industry. But how do you see the future of autonomous shipping from an insurance perspective?
Well, what we see now is that most initiatives in autonomous shipping are all local initiatives. And I think, in the foreseeable future, I think it's going to stay that way because of the problem with the legislation. So I think we're going to see more and more projects on inland waterways, short sea projects, but not so many international voyages because of the issues with international legislation. I think it's going to remain until institutions are ready to adapt the conventions, for example. And I know that the IMO has done a project recently that they finalized that in May of this year. But I think it's still going to take considerable time for them to actually change the conventions. So in the meantime, we as insurers, we just try to keep gathering information. Also keep a close eye on the technology, on how that, of course, still has to prove itself. And I think it will also be important to see how many claims and how many incidents there will be.
Which we can learn from.
Exactly. So it may not be, not every insurer may be interested to already step in this market in these early stages, but I'm pretty sure that, as the insurers are there to serve the market, that they will actually grow with the business, with the clients, and eventually be able to provide the necessary cover.
Ready to adapt and to move along.
So there are still plenty of challenges before autonomous shipping can actually be realized. But thanks to cooperation between maritime experts, governments, knowledge institutions and professional service providers, Rotterdam is leading the way to autonomous shipping. Do you want to know more? Then join Rotterdam, the maritime capital of Europe.